Well, hello and welcome to another one of the Pearls of Wisdom podcast interviews. Once again, throughout March, I'm adding to the series I'm doing about International Women's Day. And today I have the most special lady. We've recently connected, only a few months ago really, but it feels like we've known each other for a lifetime or lifetimes. I think we're kindred spirit from previous lifetimes. Today I am speaking to Helen Rose Kalia Jacobs. Welcome, Helen. It is such a treat to have you on the podcast.
Thank you. It's a real honour to be included in this.
I've so been looking forward to our interview because I know there are going to be synchronicities, there's going to be magic, there's going to be everything happening on here. So before I start the interview, I'm going back to your Facebook profile because this whole story about International Women's Day and the project came from a post I did on Facebook. So I'm going back to all the wonderful ladies' Facebook profiles to actually use that as the introduction. So, dear listeners, you have a very special lady today. Helen is a self-love architect, author, media personality, public speaker, nutritional fusion chef and a musician. Now, how's that for an introduction? Helen, welcome and thank you so much for being here.
Thank you. It really is really good. The whole thing, I've been following the whole thing with great, it's just been really inspiring to be amongst so many inspiring women, powerful women.
I can't quite believe how it's coming together, and like you say, the massive names that are taking part in this. All I can say is thank you to my guides and to the universe, because this isn't me, it's my guides of the universe bringing the right.
But it is a real privilege to be sitting here amongst so many big names. It's quite exciting.
But you are a very big name as well, lovely lady.
I know, but there's so many like authors and people who I've drawn inspiration from over the last few years, especially over the last few years, and then to see their names and faces, and then I see my little picture there, I'm sort of thinking, whoa, because I'm still humble, I don't kind of like run away with the fairies on anything. I'm very, very humble and grounded.
And I think this is why so many people connect with you and are inspired and empowered by you. And that is why I've brought all these wonderful women together for International Women's Day. So I will ask you what I've asked every lady on this series. Helen, could you share your career path, your career story? Because with this, we're hoping that we can inspire, we can empower young girls through and women throughout their career. If more than one thing that you say.
Sorry, your signal's gone a bit funky.
So could you please share your career journey with?
I'm just going to check. Can you still hear me okay? Because you're frozen on my... She's frozen, Joe.
Right.
Can you hear me now?
You've just come back. I think both frozen. Yes, I can hear you clear as anything.
The joys of Wi-Fi. So I grew up in quite a rough area of southeast London, and I went to a special school for visually impaired, partially sighted and blind children. And at our school we had regular lessons that were not 2 hours long because you get eye fatigue. So the lessons were much shorter, but we got the opportunity to really explore a huge range of skills, practical things, and then you kind of you found which was important to you, and you kind of got channeled into that direction. So with me, I was always a really high academic achiever. I consecutively scored, A's right across the board all the time from a very early age. But I also excelled at music and creativity and arts as well. But academically is what drew everybody's attention. So I kind of got funneled down that academic route more than the creative side. So I graduated from there with you know, straight A's. I was doing the Duke of Edinburgh Award, and I swung into a tree. And I didn't realise, but about a month later I started to become quite sick, and I had actually not quite burst, but I'd really damaged one of my kidneys. And so they gave me loads of you know, treatments and what have you, and I'd just scored 9 straight A's for my A-levels, and I'd got into Oxford, and I had discovered that I was having a baby, because all the treatments and everything then of course made any contraception I was doing invalid, but I didn't know that back then because it was the 80s. Yeah. And so I'm there, I'm having a baby. Everybody around me went absolutely crazy because, you know, this whole academic thing, academic excellence, you know, oh God, she's thrown away her life. And, you know, I didn't listen to them. Basically, I had earned my place. I had earned my A grades. I was really dedicated. Now, growing up in South East London in the 70s and 80s, it was a hideously rough place. And a lot of girls turned to prostitution, drugs, theft, crime. They got involved with sexual crimes, all kinds of things like that. And I never did, because I always had my brain, and I was a high achiever. So I never got involved, even though it led to extreme bullying and extreme stigmatism and extreme sort of like, don't go near her, you know, she's a bit weird kind of thing. I always used my intellect. I never, not one time, strayed away from that. So I'd earned my place. So I had the baby, and, you know, I ran away. I actually ran away, and I was determined to have the baby. And I was really happy that I was bringing life into this world, and I had him on my own. And I picked apart it was a lot of pressure, you know. Oh God, you know, you've thrown your life away, you're never going to amount to anything, you've got a visual impairment, you're partially sighted, what the hell are you going to do now, how are you going to manage, you know. And my brain, my mind and my brain and that inner voice was telling me, don't listen. So I didn't listen, and I carried on going. And when Joseph was, so I'd missed the September term, and I'd had him in September, and I missed the September term. The start of the year in January, so he was about 16 weeks old, I picked apart the rule book, which said there was a law that, you know, really fierce rule, because Oxford University is very archaic, you know, it's Victorian, it's very the old school tie network, it's very male driven. And there I was with a baby, determined to go, because as far as I was concerned, I earned my place, yeah. So I picked apart the rule book, and it stated that they didn't allow pushchairs or prams on the premises. It didn't say anything about a living, breathing baby. It just said, you know, and there was this whole discouragement, young mothers, teenage mothers, just, you know, don't even bother trying, kind of. That was the ethos and the whole attitude of everybody, pretty much everybody. So I picked apart legally, you know, intelligently, you know, I'd formed an intelligent dialogue with myself. So I couldn't find the word infant or baby, toddler or anything. I couldn't find it anywhere in the text, and I really did pick it apart, because on the one hand you've got this super intelligent woman. Yes, she's just a teenager, but you've got this super intelligent woman who's now become a mother. But on the other hand, you've got everybody saying, oh, well, that's it, your life's over. So it is. I marched in there with him in a baby carrier, strapped on my chest, and I took my place in the auditorium, the main auditorium, to sit for the lecture. And security came, and they were like, I'm very sorry, you can't stay here with a baby. I said, well, if you show me where it says that, where that's stated, I will leave. So of course, you know, because I'd already picked it apart, so I ended up, I ended up staying, and as Joseph turned 1, they allowed me to do distance learning, so I could actually still go, because back then in the 80s, early 90s, there was no provision for young mothers. It was literally like, I mean, when I had him, hospital wards still had 14 beds down each side. You know, it was really old-fashioned, and they were using terry nappies, and it wasn't, you know, it was still very much male-driven, Victorian era. You know, not much had changed in the advanced academic sphere. Not much had changed still at that time. So yeah, I earned my place. I got my degrees. I've got 3 degrees.
Oh, fantastic!
And I went on to become one of the top behavioural scientists in the country. But in 2006, I had an assault. It was a horrific assault. If anybody wants to learn the details of that, there is several talks online already where I've shared that intimate experience. But it left me paralysed for 7 years from diaphragm down. So once I'd gone through that experience and I'd come out the other side, in about 2013 I learnt to walk, even though they said I wouldn't be able to. There was no way. Intelligent brain again kicked in, saying no, you know, don't listen, don't, you know, and I stuck with my internal dialogue is really quite solid, you know, and I depend on it, my intuition. So I knew I'd be able to overcome that despite what everybody was saying. And I went on and I decided that I hadn't really chosen that career path. So although I was really good at it and I really did excel, and I've trained some of the top professionals in the UK and the States and some parts of Europe over the last 30 odd years, I decided that I was going to do something just for me. So now I'm well and truly out the other side. All the illness and everything is, you know, I've overcome several rounds of illness. I had terminal cancer at one point as well, because my body just started shutting down after the assault. I've come out the other side now, and I actually am a wellness ambassador known as the Self-Love Architect. I run 3 businesses. I'm a nutritional fusion chef. I developed a chef program because I've always been a cook as well, creative cook, and I fuse together different cultures to provide food that feeds the body at cellular level, so that you can have this subconscious inner dialogue with yourself, and the at cellular level and soul immune system level, you can enhance your very state of being. And I'm also a knitwear designer. So I do quite a broad spectrum of things. But it's under the blanket banner of the Celebrate Life Guild. I formed the Celebrate Life Guild because I genuinely feel that you have the right to celebrate your life while you're living it, and not wait till you've died and leave it to your family to say, this is a celebration of Helen. Helen's achieved. You should be doing that for yourself, really.
Oh, I absolutely love this. Love, love, love it. And this, you are, I can see synchronicities. I think anyone that listens to any of my interviews, the S word comes up everywhere, and this is where people connect. It's just lovely to hear so many things in your story are inspirational, empowering, and like you say, yes, I mean, I know that Joe Duckfield and Amanda Joy Harrison have both interviewed you, and that story, that bit where you glossed over that little bit of your life and what you achieved, it is documented in both of those wonderful ladies.
Yeah, there's several live talks on the web. If you just, you know, yeah. I have it on my website as well, celebratelifeguild.global. I've put some of the longer talks on there, so they are widely available, because it was quite a horrendous time. But you can't really, you say glossed over, because this is an hour-long interview, and obviously it's so mammoth that.
And in that respect, I'm going to ask you now, please will you come back and be a regular guest? I know we've talked about this prior to the interview, but you have so many wonderful messages that will inspire and empower anyone that listens. So please, can I ask you now, will you come back?
Oh, 100%. Yeah, I'm really looking forward to doing something regularly. It'd be just amazing, because I've managed to somehow, one of the most important things to me since I was a child has always been be independent. You know, so I am one of those public figures that is not affiliated to any one particular thing. So I am completely independent, and I think that carries me, you know, that does stand me in good stead, because I am available then to say, yes, Pearl, let's do this, you know, and it's just amazing.
Oh, this is absolutely wonderful, and you have inspired me for everything. Where you said about the creative work you do, the knitting and everything. Now, some of the images and the posts you share on Facebook, I just love that. I've always been a knitter and I crochet, but I haven't touched that for years and years, and you've inspired me to pick up thread and start doing things again. So I need to say thank you to you for that.
Well, it's meditation, isn't it? I kind of zone out while I'm doing it, sort of sitting there like, and you do zone out. I mean, this week I suddenly had an epiphany. I mean, this has been like 10 years in the making, but I suddenly worked out how to knit a daffodil in one piece. So there's only one tiny seam, one tiny little. It's like,
this is wonderful.
It's like, honestly, I suddenly was lying in bed and I suddenly thought,
It's when that inspiration, that divine inspiration comes through. And when
seriously, 10 years of mental anguish. And suddenly the other night, it hit me and I couldn't sleep for nearly 2 days making them.
Yes, so I know that feeling as well. But when you think, when you've got an idea, when my guides are coming through, that's it, I can't sleep. If I wake up in the middle of the night with an idea, I know then there's no hope, I'm not going to sleep. Up I get and I start documenting all the ideas.
Well, do you know what? I'm seeing flowers now, right? And I'm looking at them in one piece, like the shape of the knitted fabric. I'm like, oh, I could do that and that and that. There's not enough hours in the day to knit them.
Yes, I know that feeling. The times that I've done the little intricate 4-ply when my children were younger. I love the big chunky knits because they grow quickly. I used to have 2 separate knitting machines, and I'd sit there because when the children were younger, that was going to be my idea that I was going to start my first business with knitting. And I used to make outfits for my children's friends. That was their birthday present when my daughter was going to parties and things. I'd do like a little top and a knitted skirt and all these things, and I'd sit there. Sometimes in 2 days you could do that.
I know. Back in the 80s, the knitted suit was. I had 2, I think. They were just amazing, weren't they? The shape and everything, so comfortable.
And when you go into things, I don't know about you, our loft is full of wool. Probably wool that I will never use, but I will go and I will pick up things and I think, right, I like that, and then I can get patterns. I must have.
I'll tell you a secret. My laptop that I'm doing this interview with you on is on a yarn box.
Brilliant. Oh, I love that.
It's standing on a box full of yarn. I've got to tell you a story actually while we're on this subject. The theme for International Women's Day this year was Choose to Challenge, wasn't it? And everyone, all the women involved were talking about something where they've chosen to challenge something in their lives, which has then propelled them forward. Well, I was paralysed after the assault and I was lying in bed, and I have been a knitter since I was 4 years old. So I was in the middle of making toys for my children, because I have 6 children and one very recent granddaughter now. But I've always made things, and I was in the middle of making things when this happened, and I was crying when my friend came to visit, and she was like, well, you know, what's making you look? Because you're not just, you look sad. She said it's something more than just the injuries. What is it? So I told her, you know, my hands I had serious nerve damage where my abdomen was so injured. I couldn't hold the knitting needles. Because, you know, when you're a crafter, you've always got some form of something in your handbag, haven't you? And I had these with me in my bag, but I couldn't hold them. I was fumbling like this. I couldn't hold them. So she went away. She said she was going for coffee, and she went away, and she came back with these knitting looms. And it's a round circle, and it's got pegs on. And I argued. I said, oh, you know, and she was telling me that corking is the oldest form of knitting, where people stuck pins into like rocks or something, cork or something like that, and they moved the loops horizontally instead of on a knitting needle. They're all lined up like that, so they look vertical. But a knitting loom spreads them out, so you're knitting the same row, but with the loops in a different way. Argued, and she left it on my chest, and where I was paralysed, I was really injured. I couldn't move to get rid of this thing. And she went away, and she came back the following day, and when she'd come back, despite my protests in the middle of the night, I did try it. And I'd made a hat, which my daughter still has, and then I made something else, then something else, then something else. And I went home, and I'd already had an online presence with her. I was an online blogger since before that. So that was 2006. I was an online blogger since 2003 for various things. And I started posting pictures. I started sharing pictures. Look, you know, while I was lying down, I did this. And the projects got bigger and bigger and bigger and more intricate. And I became a knitwear designer. People were asking, can you tell us how to make it? And so I learned how to make PDFs. And, you know, for somebody that can't really see a screen very well, this was massive. And I had the laptop here, and I'm like this, and I was doing it. And to this day, people are still downloading my designs. And it just gives me so much joy to see. I started a movement which was Friends Of, you know, Friends Of. If you could, when you make anything that I've inspired you to make, if you tag me, you know, and it became a huge thing, you know. So knitwear, loom knitting, I can pretty much do any design that you can do on needles, I can achieve on a loom. I think I was the first person in the world to do a feather and fan stitch, which is the wavy one with the holes and then the little spikes. You know, I was the first one to come up with that. It took about 6 months to work it out. But I got there. And so now there's other designers that are doing, like, producing other stitches, other complex lace stitches, and it's just amazing because you literally can, it doesn't matter what's happened to you, you can choose to find another way. It just proves the point that choosing to challenge, because, you know, like lying there really injured and not able to do much, not even able to hold anything, you know, because I couldn't play the guitar, couldn't do anything with my hands, except I was like this on my laptop with it right up here, you know. There's always a way. There's always a way. You should never just accept someone else's narrative for how you want to be. I never have, and I don't doubt I ever will now I've turned 50. You know, I doubt it's you know, that's who I am.
And that is absolutely wonderful. And is what I start sharing how original you are, and everywhere that you're sharing your message, it's those pearls of wisdom, those golden nuggets that are coming through. And I can remember, even I go back to the synchronicities. Like you said, you went to Oxford. When I was at school, I was down to go to Cambridge to study law, but everything went wrong for my A-levels, so I ended up not taking them, and I then took my degree as a mature student. As a single mum and everything, so I set up my first business, did my degree full-time, and got divorced all in the same 3 years.
Oh, I know it well.
Yes, and I can remember the playground politics. Now, any mum listening, you can remember, you will go, when it comes to like infant and junior school, and you go on, and some mothers can be extremely bitchy.
Oh, it's the Playground Mafia. There's a book out. I can't remember the author. It's one of the top female authors. She wrote The Playground Mafia, and it is hilarious.
It is, and I can remember, because when they knew I was going to go to university, because it was when my daughter was still at infant school, and they got one lady to come and ask me, and she said to me, she says, what makes you think that you're good enough to go to university? And I thought, right then, I'm going to have you, Mrs. And I looked there and I said, well, I was supposed to go to Cambridge when I did my A-levels, but I had to postpone that. So yes, I think that's what qualifies me to actually go to university now. Your brain doesn't diminish just because you have children. In fact,
I know, there is still, I mean, my daughter, she went to chef school, and catering college and chef school, and she's just had a baby, and she's just turned 21 on the 21st of, on the 1st of January 2000 she was born, so she's just turned 21 on the 1st of January, proper millennium princess, you know. And she had her baby in September, and she's now in that position, and I'm sort of saying to her, well, between the two of us, and we do run the chef program, you know, the teaching people how to enhance their overall state of being. Let's just, you know, fly with that for a while. And so she's getting quite excited because she's coming to the end of maternity leave. But there is quite a stigma when you have a baby, still to this day. I mean, even me with all my massive qualifications and really high standing in academic world, there's still a stigma, you know, because I homeschooled my children. My oldest two went to school for the reception in year one. So one was in year one and one was in reception when I took them out of school. And I've actually homeschooled for 26 years this year. So, and they've all gone on to university, and free thinkers, independent thinkers. I was determined that they weren't going to be herded, you know, the herd mentality, the sheep mentality. I was determined they were going to be free thinkers, because I think that there is a stigma around parenthood, especially if you're a mum, especially if you're a single mum. I mean, I've still got a 13-year-old, and so, you know, I understand it. I do understand it really well. But in this day and age, you know, we're in 2021. Having a baby doesn't need to mean you're throwing away your life like it once did. You know, there was this huge amount of pressure to get through everyday life already without people giving you their opinions about how they think you're throwing your life away. I mean, life is a celebration, like, you know, I'm all for it. It's magical, it's a magical gift. And if we can be enhancing to that in any way, we should be, including and especially to our own.
Yes, yeah, and it's instilling. I mean, I know, like I said, I did my first business and the degree all at the same time.
Yeah, I did as well.
And I just wanted to teach my children that work ethic is there, that you can achieve absolutely anything you put your mind to. And it came, I mean, both of my children were badly bullied at school, and it was quite nice to know that they came to Mum. They didn't come to anyone else, because it was Mum that would stand the ground.
Isn't that a lovely gift?
Have words with the school and with the teachers and everything. I can still remember some wonderful jumped up. Oh, you know the Bean Girls. And I picked it up, and I got back to him. I said, "Big mistake. You haven't got." And I said my daughter's name. I said, "You've got her mother. Big
I know.
mistake." You know, that thing, the Julie Roberts Pretty Woman thing. And I said, not only am I going to the school, I'm going to the papers, I'm going to the radio, I'm going to everything, and I will make sure that the way you have treated my daughter is sent global. I will make it viral, and you will make sure that you will never do it again. I had two mothers back on the phone to me. "I'm so sorry, I'm mortified that my daughter has done such a thing." But I thought, no, there was no way. I mean, they were vicious to my daughter, and she's really got some fight in her. So I'm afraid, yes, it is. Us mothers will stand up, and then it does sometimes hit people when they think that they can be so
Well, I feel really proud, because I've brought up two very vibrant, very strong, very independent, very individual daughters. You know, one's going to be 25 this year, who's, you know, she's a filmmaker, and the other one is a mum, a chef, and she has like 3 jobs, and she's, you know, she's determined to make it. You know, so I do feel, you know, I'm inspired by them all the time, because no matter what I do, no matter what I say, they've got their own vision and their own idea, and they do not let me or anybody else influence them in any way. You know, they come and say, well, I'm doing this. And, you know, I smile so big inside, because that's how I am. Like, I just get on with it, you know.
Oh, it is. And when you said about that herd mentality, the amount of times I've had conversations with people where I say, I am not a sheep, I will never follow, I will lead, others follow me. And there's no way that herd mentality where everyone just follows just for the sake of it, when they don't understand the reasoning or why they're following. And if we can impart just that little word of wisdom for the listeners to say, stand up for yourself, see how empowering you are, Helen, and learn from that, because we can achieve anything.
Well, it's interesting, because I do run events. I mean, well, I did before this nonsense started and we had to do everything online. You know, I have run big events before, and one of the things I'm really big on, because I never set out to be a leader, I'm not a deliberate leader. You know, I understand that I'm truly humble that I do inspire so many people globally, you know, on a global platform. But whenever I run an event, I encourage people by saying, when you're in this room, in this space, we are all equal. There isn't a leader and there isn't a follower. We are all equal, eye to eye. And I'm very big. The reason why I became known as the self-love architect was because I instill that value. You know, people don't value their position. It's like, I regularly get people online saying, wow, I can't believe you've taken the time to respond to my post. Or like, someone like you, if someone like you is adding here, you know, wow, you know, and I'm like, but we're equals. We're both just people. We're both equal. We're, you know, I lift you up, you lift me up, your presence lifts me in equal measure, just as much as mine does you. You know, and I think it's really, really important to realise that. So on an architectural scale, to build the foundations, and it starts with valuing what you have, and we've all got it in us to be anything, do anything, achieve anything. But it starts in here. It starts with those building blocks, with making your subconscious super strong, making your body super strong at cellular level, understanding that you have a soul immune system, understanding that spiritually you're so much bigger than just what's contained inside your skin. So understanding all of this, we're all connected and we're all equals. We're all, you know, hail from the same energy source. We can tap into that at any time and really enhance our state of being, because by enhancing your own state of being, guess what? You're enhancing mine and they're enhancing yours. So, you know, that's truly what I believe, and it's what I've learned, not just academically but through bitter personal experience as well. I mean, I've been on the edge of the black hole. I've had 2 breakdowns in my adult life where I've been literally clinging on by the very tips of my fingernails, not wanting to fall in or trying to decide whether I want to fall in. You know, I have, and this is why I turned my back on my huge career, because it just didn't fit with that kind of expansion. It didn't, you know, it was too rigid and too male driven. So I thought, well, I can make a huge difference as an independent and really go for it. So that's really what, you know, that's really what it's all about, is just being able to express myself and being me at all times, 100% of the time.
Oh yes, this is absolutely wonderful, and it's almost what the universe is sending you when you've got that vibration high enough. And I know when I've been in corporate, the universe, at the time I just thought, oh yes, it's me getting poorly. but it was the universe telling me it would start with a cold. Then it would go to a cough because I'd be working 18, 20-hour days.
Yeah, or you'd twist your ankle or something. Yeah, something little. Yeah, yeah.
And then literally you hit this brick wall, because I can still remember, started with a cough, went to pneumonia. I had 3 months with steroids, with everything. And when you work for yourself, of course, when you don't work, you have no income. And actually not being able to do that, and that was a lesson learned, that I had to have balance. But yes, I always try and give 150, 200% to whichever customer and client I'm working at. But I have to remember to save something for me, because if I'm not saving that reservoir for me, I can't give to anyone else. I can't deliver what they want me to if I'm physically not well enough. And it goes back to everything and the work that you do, like the nutrition that you've worked out, as you were saying, to actually know how to feed your body to keep you at that level that you don't deplete everything and you can't physically work.
Yeah, high vibrational. And you have to remember that I've actually lost 284 pounds in weight as well, because I was a massive person throughout my whole adult life, because I was just miserable. You know, I was doing all these great, amazing things, and I was a massive, massive high achiever. I had my children, and everything was great, but inside I was dying. And so I was a massive, massive woman. I mean, I took like size 32 trousers, and like my chest was like 66 to 68 inches. I was huge. I was massive. I had like my face and my head and everything was enormous. And so, I set out to really enhance my body. I really wanted to enhance it, and the more and more I stripped away at that, the more and more I realised you can change this, but unless you change what's on the inside as well, it's never going to work. It's never going to stick. And I wanted it for life. I wanted to be this fit, healthy, holistically healthy, illness and disease free. I wanted that so bad that it became my my morning, noon and night, my, the moon and the stars. It just became everything. And now it's my reality, so it can be done. It truly, truly can be done. I mean, I've reversed terminal cancer, autoimmune disease, immune deficiency. These are massive, massive things. And I've lost 284 pounds in weight. And I'm sharing all the time how to do this. But the second I open my mouth and start speaking, I know that it's like, it just feels alien. It feels unattainable to most people. But I'm smiling away saying, but hello.
Yeah. And I think it is, you say that this is where anyone listening to this interview, I'd say listen to it again and again. Listen to Helen's words until they truly sink in. Because sometimes it doesn't sink in first time, and you'll find it, each time you listen there will be another nugget that you're meant to hear at that time, and to actually start understand.
Yeah, because it's like building a Lego house, like a house of Lego. You start with one block, and then you add another block, then another block. You don't kind of look at yourself as this mass of things,
yeah,
and say, well, how am I going to address that? Because that's too big.
Yeah.
You have to address things, tiny things, one at a time, and then when you've finished with the first one, you then add a second brick and you finish with that one, then add another one and finish with that one. You don't kind of look at everything in this big, massive, jumbled up mess. Because, I mean, when you're a mum, when you've got a house, you've got your kids, you've got the bills, you've got debt, you've got stresses. One of them will get sick and you can't work, so you can't earn any money. You'll have to do something for that. There's things, life happens, life comes up, and it throws us challenges all the time. So this is about achieving whilst all of that is going on by scaling things right down into tiny little bricks and building with them. Each time you finish one, you've got it for life, and then you move on and you've got another one, then another one, and then another one. I mean, it's taken me 10 years plus to get here, to sit here and look this vibrant and be, feel so relaxed and able to smile without having to force it, you know, like smile from the inside. It's taken a good 10 years to get to this point, but I was dedicated to myself. I was 100% dedicated to it, and I think that driving force has always been in me right from a very early age, and all I did was tap into it now, because I always say, you know, there's a photo going around the internet of an 8-year-old me, and I always say this is my hero, because she wouldn't have shied away from anything. She was presented with stuff and she just did them, you know, just like I do now. So so it's all about that, having that, growing that belief in yourself that you can achieve, because you totally can. There isn't anything. I mean, I can't even see when I go out in the sun and stuff. Does that stop me doing anything?
And this is what is so inspirational and empowering, like I say. And once you get to understand that, even if you do have the odd blip where you have a day or a week where you don't feel 100%, because of those foundations that you've really
exactly
when you come back to it, it's so much easier. You don't, like you said, you don't forget what you've already learned.
Yeah, you have the block, so you're not starting from the beginning each time. That's why I'm an architect. That's why I'm a builder, because I help people build, so that every time they have a setback, they're not jumping in from the starting point again. Their starting point has moved forward.
Yeah, and this is what's so very special with that. I mean, if you were to look at, say, 3 key areas across your career that you feel are those defining moments, could you pick 3, or is it the whole foundation and that whole journey?
No, I think I can pick 3, because I used to be a very stiff, you know, designer suit and tie, you know, designer suit. I used to be a really stiff, some would say more well-spoken woman, that I was trying to fit into this man's world and I was trying to be like them. And it was only when I got so badly ill and so badly injured that I took a long hard look at all of that, and I started to drop that telephone voice, that permanent telephone, oh well, hello, you know. I started to drop that and just be myself, honour my true essence, and it didn't really matter anymore. So I think that was a very poignant moment. So that was one of the key moments in my career, when I finally was able to say, well, here I am, take it or leave it, because I'm really not fussed what you think, you know, because I'd stopped trying to fit in. I'd stopped trying to be something that I wasn't. And then one of the other key moments was accepting that I have a rather unique appearance, and therefore I'm never going to blend in. I was born with a genetic condition known as albinism, which means I have crystal white hair, really pale skin. I'm allergic to UV rays, so the daylight does hurt me. It actually physically hurts me, because I've got a rare strain of albinism that means that my blood platelets do funky things when I'm exposed to too much UV. So I do have to be extraordinarily careful. And I was still trying to fit in, and I was going along to things, and I was getting burned. I was getting like radiation burns on the backs of my legs and on my face, and I was getting, you know, huge chunks of skin was peeling off, and I was doing all this to myself in order to fit into this man's world. And I suddenly realised I'm just so ill, I can't do it anymore, I just can't do it anymore. And when I woke up and I realised I didn't have to do it, I was accepted anyway. Yeah. It was all in my head. Other people's perceptions were none of my business. And if I saw a perception that made me feel awful, or made me feel sad, or made me feel negative in any way, I knew that was just my imagination.
Yeah.
I was drawing it myself. And so these are key moments in my career. And then the third key poignant moment was 22 years ago. I was online, and now my children were quite young at that point, and they were I was hiding from them. I was hiding from my own children because other children were saying unkind things to them about their mum's appearance. So your mum's a witch, your mum looks haunted, your mum looks like a ghost. You know, all the kind of bog standard albinism kind of, or anyone with a difference will be able to relate to this. Children can be quite cruel because they say it like it is. You know, they say what immediately comes to their minds. Oh wow, your mum looks like a witch. You know, they don't necessarily mean that in a cruel way. It's just that it comes out like that. You feel like it's being cruel. So I was hiding from my own children. I wanted them to be popular. I wanted them to be really well loved. And on the street where we were living, all the other children loved them. So I was hiding away. And I was online and I was feeling really, really sad and quite lonely at the time. You know, I was quite like, you know, that really did affect me. I felt like I had to do that. You know, I know that it's not necessary now. You know, I know now that I shouldn't have done that. But I really felt like I had to do that so that they would have a chance of having a vibrant childhood with other children. So I was online and I was talking to this guy who, he was doing research because he was a top fashion photographer for Vogue, Christian Dior, Valentino. You know, he was one of the top photographers in the world, fashion photographers, and he'd seen a girl at a bus stop that looked like me, and he went online and he was doing research to find other people that had this unique appearance. And so he wanted to ask his survey. He wanted to do his survey questions, like how you felt about how you were portrayed in Hollywood as a freaky kind of horror movie character, a deranged, you know, whenever there was a haunting or a zombie or a really deranged character that had evil powers. You know, they had albinism. They had white hair, freaky red eyes. You know, and it was all their personality was mental. You know, like crazy, like crazed, and they were seen to be targeting other people in a criminal way. And of course, my behavioural science, psychological, criminologist background, I was able to answer these questions with sincerity from both sides of the spectrum. And then we got together and he was forming a movement because he was sick of seeing this. And after doing his surveys and finding people like me, he was learning about the fabric of what makes a person. So he'd been on this side of the lens where he was photographing people that were made to look beautiful, and he was then presented with people like myself who really are beautiful, you know, because they're not these deranged people that are depicted in Hollywood and on television. So he started a movement called Positive Exposure, and I was involved with that right from the beginning, and I'm now a Pearl Ambassador for Positive Exposure that shows that you can be out, loud and proud, not hiding, no matter what your appearance is, no matter how you think you look. I mean, hell, we're living in a day and age now where everybody's trying to achieve my hair colour, or they're dyeing their hair bright blue. I mean, one of my daughters has got bright blue hair. You know, it doesn't really matter anymore. It doesn't matter anymore. So we've gone full circle, and now it's all being, you know, vive la différence. It's all being embraced, having a difference. Everybody's trying to have an individual, unique appearance now. I know this wasn't always the case, but it's movements like this, the work that we do in inspiring people to just be themselves. It really is. So doing non-profit stuff was a huge turning point for me because I became an advocate for thousands. You know, so that was another poignant moment in my career.
Oh, this is absolutely wonderful. And I'm going to tell you now, you are beautiful inside and out. And I'm going to say to every single listener that Helen is wonderful, beautiful. She inspires everyone, as I've said all the way through. And I was thinking, as you said, I have spent thousands, and I mean thousands, to get the wonderful hair colour that you've got throughout my life. I have looked to be blonde. I mean, some of mine is now grey, which is an age thing, and I'm thinking, no, but I have spent a small fortune just to have the wonderful hair colour that you've got. Like you said, it's so sought after. You are beautiful inside and out, and you do inspire so many people just from your story, from your profile, from your personality and everything that you do. You probably touch each and every one of us in so many different ways, and what you've achieved, you inspire us all. In your whole story, like I've said, and I'm so grateful that you've said you will come back, because literally I could do a whole series just on what you could teach.
Do you know, I've got to tell you this. About 3 years ago, I was sitting at an event similar to a Tony Robbins event, because I did feel like chalk and cheese, you know, like on the one hand I can do all this great stuff, but I can't talk about myself. So I wanted to learn, you know, personal development, make me stronger, teach me the motivational, I thought I needed to know. So I ended up at this rather expensive event. Microphone was coming round, you know, I nearly crapped myself. I couldn't speak. I was shaking. I just couldn't. And then I thought, you know, why are you doing that? You give massive presentations to the workplace and in corporate companies, and in I talk to the police officers, and you know, I teach them about sexual crimes and really, really taboo subjects, and yet I couldn't string a single sentence together about myself. And I really wanted to. I wanted to get this voice out. This voice was so powerful. It doesn't matter what you're going through. It doesn't matter what's happened. In this moment, you're perfect. I really wanted to say that, and I just couldn't. I was shaking. So, you know, even becoming a public speaker and being able to walk out on stage, say, this is me. This thing happened. I look like this now, but this wasn't always the case. This happened, and this happened, and I was seriously ill, seriously damaged, you know, and now here I am. You know, I think it's really important that all of us find that voice and find that, you know, because I know looking at me and hearing me now, you might think, oh wow, you know, she looks really solid, she looks like she knows what she's doing. It wasn't always the case. It truly wasn't. You know, I have had, I understand, because people tell me all the time, but you make everything look effortless. It's literally because I'm just focused on the present moment. That's the secret. There is no secret formula other than that.
And you saying that, I know what my life purpose is, and I've only found that out and truly came into that, I'd say, this year. I had an inkling last year and I've started working to it, and my purpose is to give a voice to those that haven't been heard before, to actually amplify everyone's message so their story is told and it touches the lives that they need to. And it's understanding that, but that took quite, it's been heart-centred, like you say. You be your authentic self, and you don't have to be front and centre, but it's being there to give everyone else a voice that we all need to hear.
Well, I understand completely how it feels to be sat at home crying and not knowing what you're going to feed your children, and not knowing, you know, what's coming, what on earth are you going to do. I mean, I've nearly lost my house 3 or 4 times in the last 6 years because I was so avidly trying to get my voice out there and get healthy, get stronger, get to a point where I like right in this moment, get to this point where I could say, this is what I do, this is what I am. You can too. If I can do that, you can too. I mean, I understand what it's like to be at home, be on benefits, have absolutely nothing. And do you know what? Up for all this, like the last year, 12 months of being at home, because I'd gone through all those like really sort of like dark experiences, I was able to cope perfectly well. So people were asking me, but how are you managing? And I was saying, well, I came from a place of nothing, and I flourished with that. So anything that comes up is a bonus. So my life hasn't changed at all. apart from not being able to go on stage and touch people in person, you know, actually really physically touch people in person, you know, that's about the only thing that did change over the last 12 months. And learning how to use technology, which you've been fantastic helping me with. You know, I felt like oh my goodness, suddenly my daughters weren't living at home anymore, so now how am I going to manage? I don't know about this stuff.
And this is why I think the universe brings people together, so that we can complement and enhance the gifts that we already have, so we can join with others and help to share that message. And you say that when I said about doing my degree and everything as a single mum, I can remember my daughter's best friend, her father was the local Baptist priest, and I remember for harvest, they came to our door, they knocked on the door and they gave us a box of harvest things that have been donated.
Yeah, I've experienced it.
It meant so much.
I know.
But, you know, I cried my eyes out because I thought, what is that the perception that everyone else had of me?
And I bet you felt really alone before that happened.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah. And this is where the universe brings the right people at the right time.
Have I got time for one more tiny little story, but it's massive as well? When I was diagnosed with terminal cancer, I was given 100 days to live. Now that was 6 years, 4 months, and what's the date today? So it was a few days, you know, so six years and 4 months ago. I went online and said, I can't do this life thing anymore. I was so alone and so desperate that I had my children in the house. You know, don't get me wrong, some of them were adults by then, and I was just so alone, and I was just so fatigued, and so like I've spent my entire life swimming uphill. I can't do it anymore, and I don't want to die like on kidney dialysis with all strangers around me, horrifically scared. I couldn't do it. So I went online and I shared this. I think we've lost the signal. Have we lost the signal?
No,
okay. I went online and I shared this. And I didn't think anyone was going to take any notice or listen or feel. Thousands upon thousands of people. Because I said that the NHS isn't offering me anything. They said there's no hope. And I can't afford to do anything. I can't even afford to look at anything else. Not even like spending 50 quid a week on supplements. I can't even afford that. And thousands upon thousands of people got together. They said, you're the one person that can't give up. You're our dragonfly lady. Dragonfly is a symbol of hope and blind faith and strength. And we can't let you go. And thousands of people clubbed together without my knowledge. I knew after they'd done it. They paid for me to go to a private clinic and get holistic treatments.
Oh.
So that just is an example of the collective. So there's no reason to feel alone is what I'm saying. Why I'm sharing this. There's no reason to feel alone, because there is people out there, and when you put your message online and when you're really open, and I was really vulnerable in the moments that I was sharing that I couldn't do it. I couldn't even afford to, you know, I didn't even know where I was going to buy food that week, and it was really one of those things that I was at the food bank. I'm not going to lie, you know, I was getting boxed bags from the food bank at that time because we'd just moved to London. You know, I'd moved back to London, but I was living in North London. And I didn't know what I was going to do. And then I got this diagnosis. I'd come out of a really horrific relationship as well the week before. I just felt so alone. And I wrote online, well, this has happened. This has arrived. I can't do it. So who wants to help me organise my funeral? And I was saying goodbye to people. And then this one of the guys that I was quite close to that was following me on Facebook, he gathered the money. They turned up at my house and they said, we've booked you in, you start tomorrow. And I had high strength vitamin C intravenous injected into my arm. My body started to get stronger. I was able to function. And 6 months in, you know, I did it again. Then another 6 months in, I did it again. And I've recently learned that there's no trace of any cancer, autoimmune disease, immune deficiency. I mean, I only learned this 3 weeks ago. There's absolutely no trace whatsoever now. So it's thanks to connection, and it's thanks to my not being silent about how it really felt at the time. Because I felt so alone. I didn't know what love was, what understanding. I didn't know those things because I'd been such a fierce career person, and then I became a public speaker, then I did this. I never drew breath. I never stopped for a second in my entire adult life, putting my children through homeschooling, dancing school, St John's Ambulance, finding the money for this, finding the money for that, finding the money for music, I was constantly working at something. Then this arrived, I was paralysed before, then this other, I'd overcome that, this huge thing arrived, and I'm like, I can't do it anymore, couldn't do it anymore. But the public wouldn't let me go, and they wouldn't let me give up. I get thousands of mail, I get thousands of letters, I get thousands of messages. I was going to give up this morning and not go to my appointment, not go to do my rehabilitation. But I thought about you, and I knew that you wouldn't have not gone no matter how crap you felt. And so I went. Now I feel amazing. I get thousands of them. And it just proves that we are all connected. We can feel each other, even if we never meet. We can, so I am extremely humble to be here doing this, and my presence as being an inspirational woman, because I have won Inspirational Woman of the Year again. My presence as Inspirational Woman is a thank you to all those people that were relentlessly teaching me the value of life and the value of my life and the value of my presence. Figure.
Oh, Helen, this is absolutely wonderful, and you will have inspired so many once again, because your story and how you achieve again and again and again, and it's by showing up, being authentic, being your authentic self, and showing people how you feel, and so many relate to that and can see you as that inspiration, almost that mentor that they want to follow, because they can see your journey and the path you've taken, and you've shown it's achievable. From everything you set your mind to, you have achieved, and more. And that is just absolutely wonderful.
Well, you do have it in you to do absolutely anything, be anything in any moment. And for serious backup, just be open about it. And life can be a struggle. And, I really do understand that, because I've lived it. I haven't just learnt things from books or events. I haven't just morphed into, I'm a spiritual leader. I haven't done that. I really have experienced the things that I talk about, and I think that people can relate. People do say, well, my thing wasn't as big as yours, but I'm going through this. And I say to them, it's not a competition. Yeah. I might get a splinter and it might wind me up in bed because I've had immune system issues in the past. You might get a splinter and be able to run a mile. You know what I mean? It's not a competition. Everybody comes at life from their own perspective. So the title of my book has been, It Depends on Your Perspective. It was delayed because of it was given to the publishers and all approved just at the start of the first lockdown. So it's everything's been delayed, as you know, globally. But the title of my book is actually It Depends on Your Perspective, because we all come at life from our own unique perspective, and it's very important to remember that life's not a competition. Just focus on you, and we're all here to give you serious backup.
Oh, wonderful, wonderful, wonderful. And unfortunately, I am going to have to draw this interview to a close. I could we could sit here and do a 3-hour long interview and share things and still have loads more to say.
I know, I did warn you on the...
I'm going to ask you one question that I end all these interviews on. Helen, as we've already touched on, the theme for International Women's Day and for International Women's Year, the theme for this year is Choose to Challenge. Helen, what does Choose to Challenge mean to you, please?
Recognise your own voice, hear your own voice, feel your own voice, and use it all the time.
Oh, wonderful. Absolute perfection. It just leaves me to say thank you so much for being such an inspiring guest, and I cannot wait until we get the chance to sit down and share your wonderful story further. So thank you.
Well, thank you for having me. I'm really looking forward to all the other things we've got in the pipeline too.
Wonderful. Thank you.
Thank you. Are we
Right,
clear?
Yep, yes, you are phenomenal. I am
Thank
so
you.
grateful you have come to my life. It's